Hi guys, I'm Adam, this is Unlimited Films, and today we're going to be reviewing Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, or Maleficent 2. Now I've also done another film review today which is about Shaun the Sheep. However, I thought that I'd put them both up together because the Shaun the Sheep one is pretty short, and this gives you a bit of a long one to look at. So today, unfortunately, is slightly different because normally I'd have all my notes on my little notepad. However, today they're on my phone now, just to prove that these are mine. As you can see, I've written them all down on my little notes section. I just don't want anybody thinking that I'm just reading off Wikipedia, because that isn't the case. All of these views are my own. So I'm going to just do my usual. I'm going to, talk about the plot a bit, give some key themes, discuss some key characters, and then I'll give an overall roundup and an overall opinion on what I thought of Maleficent 2. So, it's a direct follow-on from the last film. So it starts up and Aurora is in the moors, the forest, with all the little creatures, and basically Prince Philip comes to her and says, "Will you marry me?" She says yes, and this is sort of where the film kicks off, because then Maleficent finds out, and she's really not that happy about it. She doesn't really trust humans. After what they did to the Moors last time, she doesn't think that they are to be believed, and she feels like they're always plotting against the Moors, and she has to protect these beautiful magical fairies and other magical creatures. However, to try and make the peace, Philip's mother decides to invite Maleficent and Aurora to the castle in Ulstead to have a meal. Maleficent begrudgingly goes, and at the castle it turns out that we sort of really begin to discover that this queen has actually got an ulterior motive to basically try and stir up trouble between Ulstead and the Moors until she can go to war and destroy the Moors and secure Ulstead's safety. And so what kind of happens, and there will be some spoilers throughout this plot, so just from here on out, just bear in mind that I will discuss about spoilers, so if you don't want to see any of those, just skip forwards until I do a roundup or talk about the key themes. So basically, she stabs the king with the sewing needle that pricks Aurora, or as you may know, Sleeping Beauty, and he falls into the same slumber, and the same curse is placed upon him as was placed upon Aurora. However, as nobody can see the little needle being stabbed into him, they believe it was Maleficent, causing Maleficent to get very angry and attack all the guards that are in this dining room, and then she flies out the window and she gets shot with an iron bullet, forcing her to fall into the sea. And for a few minutes we believe that this is probably the end of Maleficent. However, obviously we then realise that there's a lot of the film left, and that's not going to be the case. So this other being flies into the sea. We don't really get much of a look at him for now, and then he carries Maleficent off into a distant land. We then discover that these are more of Maleficent's kind, and this specific one that saved her is called Connell. He wants to basically create peace for Maleficent and his kind within the human race. He thinks that they should be able to live together and share the land and share ideas and make the world a bit of a better place. However, there is another Maleficent-esque creature called Bora, and he wants to wage war on the humans because he believes that no matter what, they can never live in peace and harmony because humans are pretty much evil. So we sort of see Maleficent struggle with this, and to try and put her on the side of peace, Connell decides to show her her heritage, which is, the race of these flying beings around her, and he reveals to her that she is the last of the Phoenix's bloodline. So if she manages to stop having hatred and show love and go for peace, she will be able to rise from the ashes as a mighty phoenix as life is reborn in a better way. So we've also, that's a bit of foreshadowing really. We sort of see that she'll probably end up becoming a phoenix at some point. So the film then continues where she returns back to the Moors to try and save it again, as they try and pick up all of these fairy flowers so that they can destroy the fairies the humans are trying to do. And she comes under immense fire from the humans, and Connell basically throws his life in front of Maleficent and dies for her, which he hopes will be one final act to prove to her that peace and harmony is needed over war. However, this only leaves Bora standing as the leader of this race, Maleficent's race, and he decides that enough is enough now. We've just lost one of our oldest members, we're getting thin on the ground, we're going to attack Ulstead head on. So the next part of the film is really just a big war, and we see Aurora discover what the Queen's sort of aim is as well, that she wants to kill these beings and attack them all. However, in the background, the wedding's still going on, and the Queen basically uses the wedding as a way to trap all of the fairy creatures in this church and then try and kill them all with this fairy dust, but it destroys them, which has been made by a pixie in her like dungeon. Basically, she's got him working on these ways to kill fairies, and she finally does it. So as the war rages on, Maleficent holds a dying Connell in her arms, and she realises that actually to find peace there might have to be war. That's what the decision she kind of makes. So she flies to Ulstead and decides that she's just going to basically destroy everyone, and well, she's Maleficent, so she does. She's so unbelievably powerful in this film, and she just starts slaughtering all these human guards. However, we then get to a point where she attacks the Queen directly, Queen Ingrid, the leader of Ulstead, and the evil one in this film ultimately. But Aurora says, do not kill her, because if you kill her, your hatred will take over and there will be no going back. Maleficent then sees that the Queen is lining up a crossbow to Aurora's head and takes the pellet for her, but it pierces her heart, causing her to die because she's madly, wildly allergic to iron. This is where basically, spoiler alert, we believe Maleficent's dead, Aurora's crying, and in true Disney fashion, the tears manage to basically rebirth her into this ginormous phoenix. She pushes Queen Ingrid, then pushes Aurora off the tower and tries to flee, but Maleficent manages to save her, and Queen Ingrid is caught by Bora and turned into a goat basically, until the end of the film. She's a goat, and she will remain a goat forevermore as a punishment. But the film sort of ends, just to wrap things up, where Prince Philip and Queen Aurora do get married, and they become like the king and queen of Ulstead, but they decide to unite Ulstead and the Moors so that there will never be any more, they'll always live in harmony basically. And they want to build a bridge between the two so people can travel across, the magical creatures can come to Ulstead, and they can all live in harmony and peace and happiness. And Maleficent basically has had her sort of frozen and evil heart warmed by the love of Aurora and Prince Philip, and she decides that she's going to sort of like stick around and just be joyous and happy and live in the forest and not be evil anymore. And so the film sort of ends where we find out that Aurora and Prince Philip are pregnant together, which is really nice, and Maleficent basically just flies off into the distance type of thing. So I do think this will be the last one. There has been rumours that there's scope for a third, however I don't know where it would come from personally. I suppose they could try and make some sort of rivalry between another fantasy kingdom or something like that, but I really do think that this sort of sums it all up and wraps it up nicely. So that's sort of a quick synopsis about how the film runs. There's obviously a lot more to say because it's a 2-hour film, but I'm cautious not making this video too long. So just to discuss some of the key characters, and this will sort of just give you a bit more of a background of what happens during the film. We've got Angelina Jolie, she plays Maleficent again, returning character. And we see Maleficent's journey on this film sort of go from semi-evil, because at the end of the first one she's obviously awoken Aurora with True Love's kiss because we changed the tale a little bit, to basically quite warm and humorous in a sarcastic kind of way. And so her journey is really nice, and we learn a lot about Maleficent's history, we learn a lot about what Disney wants this character to be, and it sort of shows that she's not really a proper evil villain. She is not the nicest of person at times, but ultimately her motherly instinct is there, and that's quite special because throughout this film we sort of see how she manages to love this girl that she actually cursed to begin with and almost raise her as her own, and that adopted mother daughter kind of role, it becomes really quite beautiful throughout the process of this film. Elle Fanning returns as Queen Aurora. Queen Aurora, yeah, she does have quite a large role to play in this film, but I would bear in mind that she is still a secondary character. The film is heavily about Maleficent. Her role sort of comes from, she's quite heroic, quite stoic, and she discovers the Queen's plot and tries to overthrow it. But she's still sort of following the traditional fairy princess role of getting married to a handsome prince and stuff like that. So her role, it develops a bit, but I kind of feel like we sort of saw most of that in the first one about her. Prince Philip, the only thing we really see about him in this film is that he is very much wanting to unite the two kingdoms. He doesn't believe there should be war. He wants the fairies to be able to live with the people of Ulstead, and he also wants Maleficent's race to be able to unite as well, so that it's sort of like a three-way triangular unity, and that will bring the kingdom together and bring peace and happiness and harmony and allow for these different people to get on. And there's a key sort of line that's spoken in the film by the priest who marries Aurora and Prince Philip, which is, it doesn't matter where we come from, it matters who we love. And I think that's a really beautiful line, because with all the disharmony in the world, it's nice to see a film still portraying that we can have harmony between different species even, because there's a lot of wildlife problems in this world. So I think Disney do a good way of sort of pushing some ideals through a film that isn't necessarily filled with ideals. Michelle Pfeiffer, she plays Queen Ingrid. She is evil in this film. She is just horrible. Her performance is great, but she stabs her own husband. She tries to kill Queen Aurora. She claims her son has gone mad and even tries to get him locked up. She is all about war. She is one hard lady. She really is the real evil villain, not Maleficent at all. She makes Maleficent look nice. That's how bad she is. But her story sort of comes out, and is that her kingdom was destroyed because her father wanted unity, and instead the other kingdom just destroyed hers, and she was left kingdomless, exiled, forced to marry, and she ended up marrying a man who reminded her of her father, and she was fed up of weak men, and she decided that a strong, powerful woman needed to take control and fight for the safety of her kingdom, which is quite an empowering message to women, but I suppose a bit dark. She wanted to ultimately bring security through slaughter, whereas Aurora and Maleficent kind of want to bring unity through and peace through unity. And then we've got Chiwetel Ejiofor, who plays Connell. He's a really key character because he sort of changes Maleficent's perspective of who she is. She always believes she was one of a kind, however it turns out she's not. There's this race, although their numbers are dwindling, there's still chances for them to thrive, but he truly believes that peace is needed, and he sort of opens Maleficent's eyes to the chances of peace, to the realisation that this can be achieved if she fights for it. So he's a really big key character. Obviously he saves Maleficent as well. So although he's only on screen, I'd say for about 30 minutes, he's not a massive part of the film, but he's a really key part of the film. And then finally, just to discuss some other key themes. Again, these are on my notes page. So we've got like hatred in this film, and power is very much a role of the film. This very much discusses Queen Ingrid's role. As I've already said, she is filled with hate. She wants power. She urges for power because she believes that will make Ulster great and bring safety to the realm. And she believes that the people to blame are directly across the river in the moors. They are the sole reason and the sole problem for her city's destruction. Revenge, again, that's very much about the Queen wanting to destroy the fairy creatures. A care for all things. This sort of comes from Prince Philip and Aurora. Obviously we saw this from Aurora in the first film. But they're very much caring about nature. They care about the different species. They see the good in all people. Prince Philip sees the good in Maleficent. They just have a general warmth and a really nice caring personality that makes you feel close to these characters across the two films. Motherhood, massive, sacrifice, massive, sort of links together. But motherhood is very much surrounding Maleficent and Aurora, I feel, more than anything, because Queen Ingress is just a cruel, cold mother. I suppose you've kind of got the two examples there of a biological mother who really isn't very nice and an adoptive mother who really cares about her child. Now, I'm not saying that that is the real world by any means, don't get me wrong, but I think it's just a nice dynamic to sort of portray that, you know, you've got this one evil mother here and then the other one that's quite warm and kind, although they are both trying to achieve what they believe to be best for their child. And I think that's also a key thing about motherhood as well, that they're always trying to do the best by their child. The sacrifice very much comes from the fairy creatures, like I say, in the scene where they're trapped in the church, where they are all just getting killed. We see some of the fairy creatures sort of throwing themselves in the line of fire to save the other creatures. So very much about family, friends, sacrifice, trying to save others, and I think that's quite a special message as well, to see that care within other people is just as important as care for yourself. We see a change within a person in Maleficent, to see how you can go from evil to quite nice. And I think by the end of this film, the evilness is very much out of Maleficent, so that's why I don't really see where the third one would come from. Unity, like I say, this is really important in today's divided world. You know, this is a fantastic message for Disney to be spreading through a film that doesn't really bang on about it, but just shows how people can come together, and different species and different races can come together. And I think that's a really important message for today's younger audiences, as well as today's older audiences. I think we could all take something from this film. So overall, I gave this film a 4 out of 5. I really enjoyed it. I think Disney pretty much hit the nail on the head personally. There was room for improvement. At parts the film felt a bit slow. I didn't really see the point in the role of the king, other than it allows them some way to get the evilness of Maleficent sort of forced upon her by the queen stabbing her with the needle. I don't know if that was a bit lazy. I don't know, I just didn't really feel like that was necessary. I feel like they could have found a more inventive way to go to war. But I suppose it gets us into the story pretty quickly. So the CGI was fantastic, certainly on people like Dieval, who's back again. He gets turned into a bear in this film as well as a raven, and that change is just instantaneous and it looks fantastic. And we see some cool scenes with that. The magic is very cool in this film as well as all the little exploding dust clouds and people just turn into water or people turn into dust. So the CGI fantastic. Storyline overall was pretty good, bit slow in places, but I think for a second film it pretty much stood up to the first one in my opinion. I think it was as good as, and that's quite rare for a second film. I hope they don't do a third one, because I feel like this second one was enough. So I hope they just finish it as a good 2 rather than maybe making a bit of a poor trilogy like tends to happen so much nowadays. But overall, I thought it was a really good film. I hope you all go and watch this one. Definitely go and see it if you've got children. I think it sends out a fantastic message, and I think it's great for all the family. It's not one that as an adult you might be sat there thinking, oh, I've purely just came and seen this for the kids. So please, if you've got a family, or even if you just fancy seeing a film, this is one that I definitely recommend. So thanks for watching. I'm Adam, this is Unlimited Films. Please check out the channel. If you like any of the reviews, give a like, it really helps. Subscribe. So more to come. I'm seeing another one on Tuesday. Won't reveal what it is, but that'll be up soon. So please enjoy all the videos. Have a good weekend. I'll see you soon.